Good afternoon. Thank you all very much for joining us for this virtual National Infrastructure Stakeholder Summit, which is the last of our 5 regional summits of my NGA Chairs Initiative. I launched our initiative, which is focused on rebuilding America's infrastructure, last July in Salt Lake City when I became chairman. And in August, Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker hosted us in Boston to discuss innovative ways to reduce traffic congestion. In September, we completed a 3-city fact-finding mission in Australia. We were hosted by Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer in October, where we talked about protecting America's critical infrastructure. This January, Governor Gavin Newsom hosted us in San Francisco for a discussion on eliminating red tape and smart technologies. And we were very much looking forward to getting together in person for this discussion in Phoenix, Arizona. I can tell you that after our winter meeting in Washington back in February, the world has changed, and it's been 138 days since that meeting. Our focus as governors has shifted to the COVID-19 global pandemic and our response. This crisis has not only taken a terrible toll on our communities and our economy, but it's also forced all of us to change the way we look at how we do business. And I think it's shown more than ever the vital role of the NGA and the important role of America's governors, who I believe have really stepped up and led throughout this crisis. And I'm very proud to have been able to lead this group during this critical time. And I'm really proud of all of my colleagues all across the country on both sides of the aisle who've done an amazing job. Since our NGA's first briefing by the virus leaders at our winter meeting, by the federal leaders on this, I've had the honor of leading 36 calls with all of my colleagues in states all across the country, including 24 of them with the president and or vice president and key members of the cabinet, not to mention countless other communications individually and with groups of my colleagues. And we've all been battling this crisis. I can tell you I've never been more proud of our governors across America. But even though we've been focused on responding to this global pandemic, it in no way has diminished the importance of the topic that we're here to discuss today. So I want to thank Executive Director Bill McBride and his team for organizing this first ever NGA virtual summit. I want to especially thank Arizona Governor Doug Ducey, who is virtually hosting us in Phoenix, and thank all of the other governors who are participating today, along with our panelists, our sponsors, and our guests. As Arizona, Maryland, and every other state is taking steps to safely reopen our economies and put people back to work, I think it's especially critical for us to be highlighting the importance of investing in infrastructure to help stimulate the economy, to create jobs, and to ensure a sustainable recovery. Both governors on both sides of the aisle are calling for more investment in traditional infrastructure systems like roads, bridges, and transit, as well as in our energy infrastructure, water, broadband, cybersecurity, and others. And these investments really can help put people back to work immediately and help our long-term economic recovery by ensuring that America has the best infrastructure in the world to support our businesses and to support our economic growth. So for nearly a year now, I've been joining with governors across America to bring more focus to the importance of infrastructure and to the role of the governors in innovating and planning for the infrastructure of the future. My chair's initiative, Infrastructure Foundation for Success, is focused on 4 key pillars: relieving congestion to boost economic competitiveness, protecting America's critical infrastructure, eliminating red tape and integrating smart technology, and leveraging private sector investments. And for each of these topics, we've been hosting roundtables and summits to get input, gain insight, and to identify some actions that governors and Washington can take. And so while COVID-19 has certainly dominated the focus of the governor's attention across America in recent months, we have not lost sight of the importance of modern, well-functioning infrastructure to support jobs and a quality of life as we recover from this pandemic. So today, We're going to be discussing the fourth pillar of our initiative, leveraging private sector investments. And I'm very pleased that we have so many of our private sector partners joining us today. 4 of them will be presenting to us on the panels this afternoon. And all of them will be sharing their experiences and perspectives on working with us in government to finance, build, and maintain infrastructure. David Agnew, Managing Director of Macquarie, Lawrence Slade, CEO of the Global Infrastructure Investment Association, Carlos Ugarte, the Head of Corporate and Business Development for Sintra, and Tom Osborne, the Executive Director of IFM Investors. In just a moment, Governor Doug Ducey will lead a discussion with Governor Ralph Northam of Virginia on the policy tools available to states to leverage private investments, how the public and private sectors can balance the project risk to maximize returns to the public, and explore incentive programs such as opportunity zones to further attract additional investment. And then Louisiana Governor John Bel Edwards will lead a panel with Wyoming Governor Mark Gordon and Montana Governor Steve Bullock to explore various examples of innovative and successful public-private partnerships in the transportation, water, broadband, and energy sectors, and discuss how governors can position their states to leverage private sector partners across all modes and asset types. States and territories have taken many creative approaches in these areas. For example, Pennsylvania is replacing 558 structurally deficient bridges by bundling the bridges into a single public-private partnership agreement. North Dakota and Minnesota entered into a public-private partnership for the Fargo-Moorhead area diversion project, which will help prevent catastrophic flooding and ensures the strength and sustainability of our nation's economy. So again, thank you very much for joining us. I look forward to a productive summit. And with that, I will turn it over to our great host, my good friend from the great state of Arizona, Governor Doug Ducey.
Thanks so much, Governor Hogan. And I want to welcome everyone to Arizona. I hope you're enjoying the beautiful weather. We actually hoped to host you all in person last month. But Larry, I want to thank you very much for your leadership in staying focused on this infrastructure summit and for all the work you've done with the NGA to help guide governors through COVID-19. We're very grateful. This is our 4th summit, and we're going to round the bases here and bring it home in Arizona. Prior to COVID-19, Arizona had the fastest growing or among the fastest growing populations in the country. And we're very happy to have the problem of planning for population growth in Arizona. We think that this is a good problem that we can work together to solve. And with every top priority in Arizona when it comes to infrastructure, we've let the pillars of innovative ideas and partnerships, along with responsible investment, be our guides. Last year, we finished the largest highway project in state history. It was a public-private partnership that saved taxpayers more than $100 million, and opened 3 years early. And Arizona also has a $134 million overhaul of State Route 189 underway as we speak. This is the main thoroughfare for trucks crossing into the Mariposa port of entry in Nogales. And just one more example where we believe that working with a private, public, state, federal, and local entities to bolster our international competitiveness and to focus on our #1 trading partner, Mexico. The topic of this session is financing America's infrastructure, which is an incredibly pressing topic right now. I'm joined by some great experts on this topic, including my colleague, Governor Ralph Northam from Virginia. So let's begin by turning it over to Governor Northam in Virginia, and tell us about the work that you're doing there, Governor.
Well, thanks so much, Doug, and I appreciate you hosting this. And as you said, I'm sorry we can't be with you in person. We've had to make some adjustments during COVID-19, and certainly I think all of us are getting more familiar and maybe even more comfortable with Zoom conferences. So thank you for your hospitality, and also thank you for your leadership in Arizona. I've watched, and I know what you've done with your budget and your rainy day fund, and we've tried to do some of those same things in Virginia as well. I would also like to echo what Governor Ducey said and thank Governor Hogan for his just tremendous leadership. There's no more important time for the governors to be working together, and there's been so much great communication through this COVID-19 and really taking notes and seeing what our other governors are doing around the country to help us get through this. So Governor Hogan, if you're listening, thank you so much. I also have our Secretary of Transportation, Shannon Valentine, who has done amazing work in the Commonwealth of Virginia. We went into COVID-19, when I say we, the Commonwealth of Virginia, in a very strong position. Our business sector was doing well. Our unemployment rate was at 2.6%. And, we've been devastated by COVID-19. Our unemployment rate now is around 9%. Hospitality industry has been significantly affected, the healthcare industry. And so, again, we're doing everything that we can to get this health crisis behind us so that hopefully we can address the economic crisis and get people back to work and up and running as soon as we can to rebound our economy. It's important to say that we have had great relationships with the private sector, with what we call P3s, for now over 3 decades, and a little bit over $11 billion of capital investment has come into Virginia, while we have spent about $1 billion from our from our public sector. So this has really allowed us to do a lot of amazing projects in Virginia. One of those is I-66 in Northern Virginia. And I know, Carlos, you're part of this discussion, and you're with Centra, and we've had a great relationship there. We've got a $3.8 billion P3 project in Hampton Roads with our Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel. We've done a lot of great work with I-81, 95, 395, and 495 up in Northern Virginia. So we have really relied on our relationship with the private sector. We've learned a lot, and we look forward to continued relationships as we move forward. It's been interesting, and I'm sure all the states have felt this during COVID-19. Our transportation, our road traffic has been down 40 to 60%. So it's actually given us an opportunity with less traffic on our roads to continue to move forward with these projects. So we've been able to get a lot done, and look forward to continuing that as we move forward. We signed this year a transportation omnibus bill that will give us the revenue stream that we need in Virginia in the upcoming years. We're also interested in a little bit of an aside, but when we talk about infrastructure, something that is very important to the business community is green energy. And so we signed the Clean Economy Act this year, which will hopefully get us close to non-carbon energy production by 2050. Again, when we talk to businesses that are interested in growing in Virginia and want to come to Virginia, this is very important. So a lot of good things are happening in Virginia. We pride ourselves on being a business-friendly state, and I know Governor Ducey does as well in Arizona, and that's really the future. And we want to make sure that that we welcome people that want to do business in our Commonwealth. So Doug, and to all the other guests that are on this panel, thanks so much for your leadership, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thanks very much, Ralph. I really appreciate the update on what's going on in Virginia. And let's bring some of our expert speakers into the conversation. Joining us are Lawrence Slade, CEO of Global Infrastructure Investor Association, and Carlos Ugarte, the head of corporate and business development at Centra. Both speakers are joining us internationally today. So let's start in London with Lawrence. Lawrence, thanks for joining us, and tell us about some of the strategies you're seeing work to attract private investment in the U.S., and what can we learn from our international partners?
Well, thank you very much to the NGA for today's initiative. I think it's absolutely brilliant, and thank you to yourself and Governor Northam for being on the panel with me. I think in terms of what we're seeing is lots of activity around the world as different economies start trying to emerge from the COVID crisis, and in particular how infrastructure itself and investment in infrastructure, how that can form part of the plan to help economies recover. And if you think that across our membership, members have around about $800 billion worth of assets under active management, yeah, it really shows that this is a fantastic area, as Governor Northam was saying, in terms of what the money that states can access to support their investment. And of course, that doesn't just cover one single area of infrastructure. It goes right the way across from transport to rail to seaports to airports, solar farms and digital. So it really provides ample opportunities for you to really drive business and investment into individual states. And I think, it's comparatively, though, it's a shame, if you like, that the private infrastructure has a smaller role in the US than we're seeing in many other countries and regions around the world. I mean, if we look at our global assets database, for example, out of some 1,500 assets around the world, our member companies own or operate only 186 in the US compared to 518 in the UK. And I'm sure you all know, the little old UK is kind of the size of many of your states alone. But again, nearly 500 in the European Union and getting on for 130 in Australia and New Zealand. And the thing about those assets is that it's not just one single funding model. Obviously, as we've already heard, you're familiar with the P3 model over here, which is fantastic in certain circumstances, but there are other ways that we can do this as well. So across in the UK, we've seen models under what's known as the RAB, the Regulated Asset-Based Model. We've seen other areas in renewable energy in particular around contracts for difference, but also we're seeing leasing models and outright private ownership as well. So there's lots of different funding models that can be brought to bear to suit the different circumstances that individual states will find themselves in, but also that are appealing to different sectors and different structures of infrastructure. And I think, while there's a broad consensus, and we heard Governor Hogan speaking about this in the video at the start of the workshop, around the importance of investment in infrastructure, I think there's been less alignment about that optimum value between public and private finance. And I think what we're seeing coming out of COVID is a realization that either a federal or a state level, that so much money has been spent to keep economies going during this, that actually there's a huge opportunity for states to access tremendous private funds that can actually help get these things going and actually really move your infrastructure forward. And I think in the US, there's also an additional opportunity to create new funding streams for governors by selling or leasing public assets that actually no longer need to stay in public hands. That you can do by entering into long-term leases or concessions with the private sector for the operation of selected existing assets. And you can then invest the proceeds from those in other assets, in other infrastructure, without placing additional pressure on your own budgets. And I think then at a federal level, there's work that can be done with small changes to tax incentives to sit alongside that and create a structure that really allows states to move this forward. So I think working with private infrastructure investors right the way across the country will really allow individual states and governors to access significant funding, but that's matched by an unrivaled experience in how you can economically manage, develop, and run existing and new infrastructure and responsibly adding value to your communities.
Thank you so much, Lawrence. Really appreciate that. And I know we've got Carlos who's in Madrid. Carlos, if you could answer the same question, what strategies and ideas are you seeing that we can apply as governors in the states? Thanks again, Lawrence, and we'll hand it over to you, Carlos.
Even though there are many examples around the world that could be brought to the U.S. I think you have to go in the U.S. and see what has worked, what has been impeccable in U.S. When Governor Northam talked about I-66, that was a terrific example of how something could be done good. It's important to understand that P3s is not a financing tool. P3 is a way to maximize the value of an asset. And by maximizing the value of an asset, you bring financing, you bring innovation, you bring a lot of things, and you bring the partnership with the state. As Governor Northam said, I-66, they brought a $8 billion project, but when they studied the project themselves, the project was a $600 million subsidy. So from $600 million that the government has to put the money in the pocket to give, they end up building a $4 billion project and saving $2 billion. That is what P3 is all about. Actually, Governor, you can see my pin here from from your state. Okay, and so I think it's important to see what has been done correctly in the U.S. I mean, I'm not saying in England or in Australia or in Spain or in Chile or in Europe. They're not good examples. They're very good examples. But you have good examples, excellent examples, and as Governor Northam said, 3 decades of examples in Virginia. Then you have Texas with very good examples in Texas too. And the important thing here in the U.S. is the problem in the U.S. I see that P3s are seen as a financing tool, and they're missing the big point, and the big point is generating value for the asset, increasing the value for the asset, so that will release the taxpayer money for other needs, as was pointed here. So what we could do, first of all, it's important there's no backdoors accountability. That's important in the country. Efficient risk transfer. There are certain risks that are better managed by the government. And there are certain risks that are better managed by the private. And there's risks that could be shared. In I-66, for example, we have to do a NEPA evaluation going through a park, and we work with the government, and we got that. What that made the project 20% more profitable, and that money, where it goes? To the government. So that's the kind of things. Then the other important thing is skin in the game. You need investors that put real skin in the game, so they are in for it, and therefore they will look, because we're going to have problems. We're going to have NEPA problems. We're going to have financing problems. We're going to have operation. We're going to have COVID. Where it will be devastating for the industry if there is a bailout for private P3s on there. This is not good. I mean, we have to find solution without bailouts for us because of COVID. The bailout should be for the people that cannot, other industry, people that are unemployed, not us. And then innovation. We bring innovation, we brought innovation in 1966, and we're bringing that innovation within, with the government. So I think it's important that we just look inside here and maximize. And in the previous panel, there was the governor of Louisiana saying, well, the big guys will not come to my state because we don't have enough traffic or TDM. Well, that's not true. You could structure a project around a city. It could be around New Orleans, and the proceeds you get around that project are used for the dock projects, for the project that needs subsidy. That's the way, and I think Governor Northam is doing that in the Hampton Road project. Is they're using other proceeds to accelerate projects that are not financially feasible. So I studied too the project in Phoenix, many years ago. When and I think the ones that are in I-10 near Phoenix, Arizona, there were projects that makes a lot of sense to be privately owned, or at least to maximize the value. So the most important thing is to let the private sector bring the ideas and let them compete for innovation, compete for their ideas, and like that you will unleash the value of the asset. And I think it's not because Governor Northam is here and not because we did I-66, but I think they did a terrific job. Texas, which is not here, they also did a terrific job. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carlos. And again, thank you, Lawrence. And I'd like to bring Governor Northam back into the conversation. And in our last few minutes, I want to ask you to make a prediction in 30 seconds or less. And this will go to all three of you. How do you see America's approach to financing infrastructure changing in this new coronavirus era? And we'll begin with you, Governor Northam.
Doug, thank you. And Carlos and Lawrence, your comments are just are wonderful. So thanks for being on this today. But Doug, we've got to think outside the box. We've got to use innovation. We've got to take advantage of our federal loans, TIFIA, PABs. I want to just reiterate very quickly. I know we don't have much time, but what we've been able to do with P3s is really invest in other modes of transportation. We have the Port of Virginia. We've been able to invest over $700 million to make sure it's deep, it's wide enough for these large ships. Even with I-66 project, we were able to build bike paths and pedestrian paths. We've been able to invest in our airports, rail and transit. So with the use of P3s, we've been able to invest in all these other areas. And we've got a couple of very exciting P3 projects coming up. The American Legion Bridge, which I'm working with on Governor Hogan. It goes across the Potomac River. It's been a bottleneck for years and years. So we're very excited about that. And then we have another project, the Long Bridge, which we're working with Amtrak, CSX to get more passenger rail going across the Potomac River. So again, it's a long-winded answer, Doug, probably more than 30 seconds, but we've got to think outside the box. We've got to use innovation, and we've got to join the private sector and make them part of the solution. And so we've had great relationships for over 30 years, and we hope to continue those.
Well, thanks so much, Governor Northam, and very thoughtful answer as well. So, Lawrence, once again, we are running low on time here, but if you can tell us what you think and try to keep it close to 30 seconds, that'd be helpful for the program. Lawrence?
I do my very best. I think actually Governor Northam hit the nail on the head there. Let's break free that innovation and just see what you can do right the way across infrastructure. We're talking private finance today. It's not just about transport. That's a huge element for the states, but there's so much more to infrastructure. And I really hope that as we come out of COVID, let's grasp the metal here. Let's see what we can deliver with private finance. Let's mix the billions that my members can bring to the party with the billions that we can drive through P3s, through other things. We can really make a difference to citizens across the country.
Thanks so much, Lawrence. And Carlos, any final thoughts?
Yeah, very, very fast. First of all, I think, P3s will accelerate in the US, not because of conviction, because of necessity. And that's the thing. And because of that necessity, I think it's important that we mix, we sit and brainstorm with the public sector and see what projects we can deliver fast. Because what we need is to produce projects to put the people back to work. So we have to solve the congestion problem, solve the transportation problem, but we have another variable now. What are the projects that are faster on the street? And I think that is what we need. We need to sit together, and that's going to happen in certain states. It's happening right now. I've been called by four different states and another country, in Canada, and we're studying how to accelerate projects and what projects will be delivered fast.
Well, thanks so much, Governor Northam, Lawrence, and Carlos. Thank you, Governor Hogan, for your leadership of the NGA.